Frankly, I've had this theory cooking in the back of my mind for quite a number of years. I am finally glad to get it out of the way and unload the pressure of not speaking about it for so long. Yes, the title is right. I am almost sure that Nico Robin is Monkey D. Robin, daughter of Monkey D. Dragon. And there is an argument to be made that this has been hinted in subtle ways for a long time. But I am not saying that I can't be mistaken about it. So let's return to the very beginning of this theory. During a watch through of Robin's backstory, that familiar One Piece theory itch returned when the Ohara archaeologists mentioned that they are researching on behalf of Olvia's husband, specifically in chapter 393. Oda just has to tease us. The only other mention of this man is in her recent Viver card data years later, which implies that he's long dead, without even naming him. But I know better than to take those Viver cards at face value. Viver cards are hesitant canon due to their occasional errors, so I intended to theorize freely. My initial assumption is that Oda would not have bothered mentioning our beloved emo archaeologist's father in chapter 393 in such context if he wasn't important. He loves teasing, and I do love/hate being teased. Yes, most people think the similar theories made about this over the years by others are all reaching, and that much is clear. I looked for other videos made already and was not surprised that, for example, Taking 101 did a video long ago exploring all the possible identities of Robin's papa. And of course, forums online from years ago had among them this same conclusion and others. Some people have made wild guesses that it's Roger, or Kuma, or Kuzan. But in my opinion, the only good theory is that Monkey D. Dragon was Nico Olvia's husband and Robin's father, making Robin and Luffy siblings by different mothers, and the supporting evidence for it in Egghead was such a welcome surprise, although not the only supporting evidence. I'm just gonna list the bits of evidence I think support this theory. Note that I am not claiming that any one of these proves me right by itself. I am honestly relying on them in combination. That means that circumstantial evidence must be considered in case it helps, as it may very well have been intentionally written. I'm not surprised most people don't think like this, but Oda's subtle breadcrumbs trail style should be more familiar by now. First, given that Olvia has white hair and Robin has black hair is a very likely clue for the father. This is obviously the least important point as it's not a real argument. I know that countless men have black hair, but it doesn't hurt to consider it. Second, Olvia and Dragon are the exact same age. That is to say that if Olvia were still alive, they would both be 55 years old in the present. Again, this is circumstantial, but the day I'm possibly proven right officially will be the day people jump on saying it was evidence, so might as well include it now as a helpful piece of data. Third, I was interested in the relationship between Robin and Dragon, mainly during the time skip, but even before that. Granted, we know Robin is known as the Light of the Revolution because she survived Ohara and can read the poneglyphs and lost history, which is very critical in fighting the world government. That is accepted as her symbolic revolutionary role, and most of us find it sufficient. But that doesn't disprove anything else could have possibly been happening behind the scenes. Hypothetically, if Dragon knew he was Robin's father, it would explain a lot about his interest. He was visibly more invested in Robin than Luffy. But Robin's critical role still completely overshadows this point of view. Even if I'm right, I do think Dragon cares more about fighting the government than his own children. But maybe Robin was personally special to Dragon all along. Wouldn't it be crazy if Kuma sent Robin to Tequila Wolf, a revolutionary target, not just because of her knowledge as Ohara's legacy, but also because Kuma knew she was Dragon's legacy? Fourth, the very satisfying reveal in Egghead arc in chapter 1066, discovering that Dragon visited Ohara personally to pay his respects. In my mind, this resurrected a theory that I have half buried for years, but never forgot. Anyway, this means I have to retroactively theorize that Dragon was most likely an archaeologist studying the Void Century before he was a revolutionary. All we know is that 2 years before the Ohara incident, he was present at Roger's execution and looked unhappy. It's possible he was an East Blue archaeologist, as we surely know he is from Goa Kingdom, who went to Ohara like most do, as it was the world's center of historical knowledge. Maybe his motives from the start were to whistle-blow the government. If he really is Garp's son, he might have insider info on the world government from an early age, so it's a fair assumption that at the very least they are not on good terms, if that wasn't obvious. But why did Dragon hate authority to begin with? That we must still find out, but the fact that he was a freedom fighter around the Ohara incident suggests that reason is from an earlier point, theoretically. Let's just say that Dragon met Olvia on Ohara, and they perhaps were the newest generation of poneglyph scholars after the older Clover's legendary rebellious generation. Maybe the government secrets he found early on pushed him to form small rebel groups like the Freedom Fighters, long before the Ohara incident, hence his absence. But if his relationship with Luffy is any indication, he likely didn't prioritize his daughter Robin during her early years until it was too late, after which he doubled down and formed the Revolutionary Army, which we know was inspired by Ohara. In any case, in this theory, Dragon coupled with another woman, Luffy's mother, possibly his second wife, possibly not even married, and Luffy is born 11 years after Robin's birth, but just an approximate 3 years after Dragon's meeting with Vegapunk on Ohara. Ohara did push him, but I can only imagine the hypothetical rage and grief he may have felt at first if he really was Olvia's husband. He was mostly calm when he talked with Vegapunk, but by then he probably had time to process. And yes, I may just be wrong, but wouldn't it be nice if he saved Luffy from Smoker in Logtown so that he wouldn't have to lose another family member again? The vibe I'm getting is that Dragon cares just enough to do that for him, but not much more, being so absent and all. Fifth, there are just a few subtle moments that makes myself, admittedly biased, think that Oda is trying to hint that Robin and Luffy's cute relationship is special in some way. Exhibit A. When Kuma was separating the Straw Hats on Sabaody, the order he popped them may have been random in-universe, but he still saved Robin and Luffy for last. I doubt he wanted Luffy to suffer for sadist reasons, but we know Luffy being last broke him. And we are virtually certain Kuma wanted Robin to meet Dragon. Regardless of all that, I think from a meta standpoint, Oda seemingly chose to put Robin as last to go deliberately, because why would it be random? Exhibit B. Robin is very quick to understand how Luffy thinks. Despite their differences in age and gender, she thinks he's funny often, and deliberately chose to join his crew instead of ending her life, and is the first one to know how to get him to remember Marco using his twisted pineapple reasoning. Exhibit C. I'm glad I noticed this last minute while writing this. In the C-Free color spread, we see some Straw Hats and cats dressed like modern gangsters, and you know I can't help but say that Oda drew Luffy and Robin's features so stylish and similar. If you told anyone who didn't know One Piece that they're siblings, they wouldn't be surprised. Gosh, she's so pretty. I would like to bring up the valid point that if this is all true, Robin should have probably discovered it over the time skip, yet she mentioned nothing. Well, most of us know by now how Luffy's own personality doesn't volunteer personal info unless he's asked, and not even then if it's painful. It took over 100 chapters for him to mention Ace, and we had to meet him to even reveal it. He's just that type of person. It's also known that Dragon didn't tell his fellow rebels any personal info about himself in the past. In this sense, they are alike. Hypothetically, if Robin is their relative, isn't it also perfectly fitting not to volunteer personal info? We all know Robin keeps things to herself. I might even guarantee that if she did find out, after a moment of shock she would find the whole thing humorous and decide to keep it to herself to avoid Luffy treating her any differently. There's always the possibility that Robin never found out, but I really like the concept of Robin keeping another secret. By now, keeping big secrets is her job. There's also the subject of meta ramifications. As we spent decades not assuming that Robin and Luffy were half-siblings, it would shock and rock the fandom just as much as a character death, wouldn't it? That is one reason this theory might be wrong. Just the sheer impact of it is ambitious and admittedly unnecessary to the plot. Robin and Luffy are fan favorites already without this. But I'm not giving up just yet because in retrospect, their meeting and adventures on the high seas are like fate, like Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. Oda's style may very well be about how adopted family is more valuable than blood, and he's proven this countless times, and we love that about One Piece. I don't want to cheapen that. But imagine if Luffy finds out that he had more family than he realized. What a twist. And with his great intuition, it would be funny if part of his spirit connected with her since they met and immediately trusted Robin from the moment she joined the crew, despite knowing that she was previously an enemy. Now that I'm done with all my desperate reaching, I would like to issue an apology to the tiny percentage of fans who might find this theory distasteful on the off chance that they ever shipped Luffy and Robin or ever read any relevant fan fictions. I won't judge your fantasies, but maybe prepare to deal with this theory becoming real soon. I'm just betting that it will be soon revealed in canon that Dragon was Robin's father all along. I know I must be crazy to some of you, but you'll feel silly if I'm right. After all, I at least think it'll be so sweet when we find out that the Pirate King's sister was the key to the One Piece and the Void Century, and for him to not even know it.